Welcome, newcomers and true believers alike. This is the countdown to Doomsday, an MCU watch along podcast packed to the brim with thrills and chills, twists and turns, and more supervillains than you can shake an arc reactor at. I am your host, Jake, and I am joined by. Is it? Are you from the land of the monsters? Is that where we're calling from? You've just got out of Halloween, and boy, your arm's tired. It's Sammy
Don't
from Monsters Up North, everyone.
don't send me back to Halloween. I'm all Halloweened out.
Yep. Okay. Out of Halloween Town into Christmas Town or into 616 Town.
Into Earth 616, here we go.
Yeah. But yeah, welcome.
Well,
Hi. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. We thought we'd add a little Stanley flair to the intro there because we were saying earlier he's one of the best hype mans in the business.
Some of the radio stuff that they used, it was almost podcasty-ish because he
Yeah.
would like kind of be a way of promoting what was going on, and he would give nicknames to everyone. So maybe
Mhm.
you're like Jake the King Burden. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
We'll get
know.
it.
I'm just going along the lines of Jack Kirby.
I'm bad at nicknames, but I think like Chris and
Yeah.
Lee will be able to come up with some good ones for us.
I kind of didn't come up with Mistress of Ceremonies. I
No.
stole it and then someone changed it.
Okay.
So
And okay, I'm the ever loving Jake then.
that will come apparent later on. So
right.
ever loving Jake. What
So
have we got
yeah,
for the people today?
I was gonna say, so yeah, we said it's an MCU watch along podcast. This is actually our very first episode, which means in the MCU timeline, which started in 2008, we have to watch Iron Man because he might not be the first ever superhero movie, but
Mm-mm.
in this connected world, it was definitely the first explosion into that kind of thing. And
It
movies were
was.
never the same again.
They really weren't. I'm going to give you a brief history of the MCU. So I'm going to set the scene before we
Mhm.
get into Iron Man.
Yeah, which is very Marvel because those old comics they were very talky at the start.
Yeah. So it's 2005. That's where we are right now. And Marvel have branched out and want to produce their own movies and distribute them through Paramount Pictures.
Wow.
But Marvel, as Marvel already had a taste of their own superhero movies, as they were actually co-producers on the likes of X-Men and Spider-Man, and worked with Columbia Pictures, New Line, 20th
Mm,
Century Fox, and they wanted their piece of it. Um, they didn't do great on the deals that they made with the
big
other
mess.
production companies. It was a huge, huge mess. But Avi Arad, the head of Marvel Entertainment film division, known as Marvel Films, was impressed by Sam Raimi, and he wanted to do his own style and basically get in on the action.
Yeah.
So he decided to create Marvel Studios, Hollywood's first major independent studio since DreamWorks Pictures was founded in 1994.
Oh wow, so the landscape was like that stagnant. No one had started anything since then.
Yeah. So Arad then got his second in command, who is, as we all know him, Kevin Feige, and he set him out to work. And he was involved with the co-production of Marvel movies done by Sony, New Line, 20th Century Fox. He is the ultimate fanboy. He hasn't just
Yeah.
worked on these movies. I mean, he was, if you look on any of the credits for X-Men and Spider-Man, Kevin Feige's name is in there as
Yeah,
an
I've noticed
executive
that when I was
producer.
watching back. Yeah.
But he was also involved in the Star Trek universe as well. And that will come into
Right.
play way, way, way down the line.
Oh, teasers.
Way down the line. So Kevin set out to basically create a Marvel universe, but what he had to look was outside of what they had, because at the time, Marvel didn't own all of their characters. They
Yeah.
got into a lot of debt and had to sell things off to make ends meet. So Kevin went into the back catalogue and was like, well, who do we have?
Oh, yeah.
We have the Avengers.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a
And
good starting point to have, isn't it?
yeah, so he wanted to shape it into the worlds that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had created. And he wanted to use the Avengers to do that, but he didn't have any choice really, because it's all they had as a commodity anyway that was
Yeah.
going to get a name out there. So to raise the money for the studio, um, they funded, what was it, to raise capital, the studio secured a funding from a 7-year, 525 million revolving credit facility with Merrill Lynch.
Okay. Yeah.
So Marvel planned to release individual films for the main characters and then merge them into a crossover film. Arid resigned in 2006, thinking this is never going to work.
Oh no.
And he insisted that it was his reputation that helped
Yeah.
secure the funding, but this whole thing was never going to work.
Okay.
So in 2007, Kevin Feige is named studio chief,
Mhm.
and he
That's
basically takes over. But he forms a committee. Now, this is really interesting because this committee, I don't know if they still are together today, but these
mm.
guys are the reason for continuity. These
Oh wow.
guys,
The law Bible people.
pretty much, yeah. And when you hear the names, you can understand why, because you have Feige himself, you've got President who is Louis S. Esposito,
Mhm.
or Louis D. Esposito, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, Dan Buckley, who was the head of Marvel Publishing at the time,
Mhm.
Joe Quesada, who was a comic book writer, and Brian Michael Bendis, who is also a comic book writer. He is actually the
Oh yeah.
creator of Miles Morales.
Yeah.
Um, and they were the committee. They oversaw everything when it comes down to continuity. They made sure that everything falls into place. However, I generally don't know if this committee still exists today.
No, we wouldn't know, would we? It'd be the Illuminati type of a
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. So the first phase, because this is Kevin's plan. He wanted to
Mhm.
create phases, and his first phase was always going to be Iron Man. I totally forgot what his name was there.
Yeah.
Iron Man, Hulk, and Ant-Man.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Ant-Man missed the first phase, didn't he?
He did. But his first ever call was always going to be to the genius billionaire philanthropist
Yeah.
Tony Stark.
That's odd as well, isn't it? Because Tony Stark wasn't that big of a superhero back at this point in
No.
time, and not really when we were growing up either, as far as
N-
I remember.
Not to my knowledge, but see, with me, comic books came into my life in 2014.
Mhm.
So I've been with Ant since 2007. He's a massive nerd, so
Yeah.
he knows the names. And I fell into place later on. So to
Yeah.
me, I didn't know any different.
Mhm.
But now I know that, he wasn't really that big of a name.
Yeah, like, and for me, like, I was way more invested in DC at the time. And it wasn't until these things started coming out and then people started talking more about Marvel storylines. Like, obviously, I knew Spider-Man from
Hmm.
like those movies and stuff, but this was when I got like the Marvel door got unlocked, and I was like, oh, okay, so like, this guy, I've seen some of this guy in like X-Men, and you get
Yeah.
references, you hear random things about like this guy called Thanos who's like really important. It's like it was amazing to like finally get a little peek into this world after just being like full on like DC animated, then buying
Mm.
Batman comics like here and there, but never really following anything or like the wider comic book fandom.
Well, that must have been a change because you've
Yeah,
got like Marvel it's creating a universe to like continue on, whereas a lot of the time was just one story, one shot,
yeah.
one,
Oh yeah, yeah. Like one Batman, and then I'm like, I don't really know what he did after this.
yeah.
Like,
Did he just go to sleep until the next one? Like, I don't know.
did the artist change, and then it was a totally different thing, or did they destroy the universe? which
Who
I know,
knows?
which I know Marvel has kind of like gotten close to in recent years, but I am
Oh,
glad they haven't destroyed the universe and restarted
they
it.
they they went through a phase in the height of my writing
Yeah.
career,
Mhm.
where they basically were doing events, and then they were not liking how the event was going, so they
Yeah.
re-scrap it, do a new one, and take everything back to issue one.
Yep. Yeah.
I think it's only recently they've kind of like went, can't keep doing that. They did it about 3 times.
It's a very
Um,
like it's a very selfish like storytelling tool as well, because I can see where people come from. Like the companies are like, oh, we want a fresh start, we want to
mhm.
start again, we want to be better next time. But then the long-term fans are like, well, we gave you money for like a decade and now you've ended our character and started it again.
Oh,
and then like and then on the other hand, it's people like me could be like, oh well, this is the perfect jumping on point.
that's it. It's
Yeah.
such a double-edged sword because
Yep.
as a comic book reader at the time, I was like, oh, please stop taking us back to issue one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a way for someone to get in. If
Yeah.
I go to a comic book shop now, I'm only looking for issue ones
Yeah.
because I can't just jump in at issue 15. Like I need to go back to the beginning. And like
Yeah.
I can't do that. I can't just look at the previous on, where it says previously on and then read on. So yeah, it was a perfect jumping off point for people to be able to get into comic books because it
Yeah.
can be really hard.
It's scary because you don't want to pick up the wrong one and be like, this isn't what I thought. And then
I thought I did it the right way. I
yeah.
started with ones from my husband's collection,
Yeah.
which were just, iconic books.
Yeah.
Like Old Man Logan, Killing Joke, and The Watchmen and stuff like that, like really
Same.
iconic books.
I basically
And
I could only really get my hands on, because obviously I was in Sunderland at the time, so not no comic book shop really. So
no,
I could only get my hands on like what HMV or Waterstones had, which
mm,
was like, your Infinity Gauntlets, your Long Halloween, Hush and all that stuff, like the classics.
all comic books I've recently read in the last few years because they were like my Everest. Infinity
Yeah.
Gauntlet was such a hard read for me to start with because it's
It's
so
yeah.
the artwork is so overwhelming
So I tell
that
you what
it's
makes
like,
it a little bit easier that they should
mm,
probably include is if you read Thanos Quest before, because
oh,
that's like a 6 issue thing of him like actually collecting the stones and like doing the little mini trials
oh,
to like get each one, or like tricking the person to steal it from them. And I think like with that little bit of extra context, it's like an easier ramp. But I only
I
read it after the fact.
I went in straight away and I was like,
Yeah,
right, I
same.
am doing this. I am sticking with this.
Yeah.
I loved
It's
it
so
though. I've
it sort of tells you why he's interesting as well, because when he's just
Yeah,
like immediately all powerful, it's like all it's like action stations and everyone just runs off
yeah.
and gets destroyed.
I absolutely loved that book so much. It was
Yeah,
so good. I would definitely read it again. But
yeah,
the artwork at the time is so it's beautiful, but it's
yeah.
so overwhelming.
Although the cover of mine isn't beautiful. It's just got like Thanos like there like this and just a black
No.
screen behind him.
Oh, I've got the actual
Yeah,
the
like a nice
original.
yeah.
Yeah, the
It
original picture, but obviously not the original book.
it has the covers inside, but yeah, it's I don't know what they were thinking on that one.
Yeah, I only read them a few years ago.
Yeah.
Because it was
I'm
literally I would pick it up, put it back down again. It's like Secret Invasion. I
yeah.
cannot get through Secret Invasion.
I almost didn't get through the TV show. But we'll talk about that later, I guess.
Well, what I'll do before we start jumping into the actual Iron
Yes.
Man film is I will give out the disclaimer.
Yep.
Sure. Everything discussed in today's episode is our opinions and our opinions alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us on Facebook. Come and join us on our Discord or comment section where we can have an open discussion. But what we won't have is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong. We can all agree to disagree in fandom. So let's keep it fun, keep it kind, and keep the toxic behavior out of a nerdism.
Excelsior. Yeah, and for Marvel, it really hit a fever pitch on the toxicity. But I think we're over that mountain, and I think we're heading back down to more well-adjusted conversations, and hopefully we're starting off that, keeping that
Yes.
trend going.
Yes. So let's go back. Let's go back to
Yeah,
2008.
the simple times.
Oh, oh, how I don't remember how old I was at that point, and I don't want to go and get my calculator out and show you how terrible I am at maths.
No, no, I'm the same, but I do remember being very excited about this because even though I had no idea. Well, I knew Iron Man because he showed up in some cartoons and stuff every now and then. I knew he was
Mm,
a man in a robot suit. That's kind of all you need to know, like
yeah.
going in. Um, but I do remember being excited about this because it had definitely been like sold as like this is going to be like a whole new era. Comic book movies
Yeah.
are coming back because we had a little like dip after like the early 2000s and stuff, once all the Spider-Mans had finished and everyone made fun of Spider-Man 3 relentlessly.
Ugh,
um it was like, oh, okay, so what's next? Like we've
yeah.
had our random like Blade offshoots and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was I mean it didn't help that Spider-Man 3, X-Men 3
Yeah,
kind of like left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. So at this
yeah.
point, they probably would have taken anything.
Yeah, but yeah, like I don't remember a lot of my like opinions on this at the time, other than just like thumbs up, like this is a great movie, just you watch it on a night, like kind of thing, and the summer holidays and all that stuff. It's a good like it's one of those good cozy action movies that you can just stick on. But on this watching, I definitely noticed some way more interesting stuff, and knowing the entire history is fun too, because you like
Hmm.
looking at all the seeds that were getting planted. Whether or not they really planned everything to go the way it did is a different question.
If
But
they
yeah,
did, they're very, very clever.
yeah, yeah,
They obviously, I mean, I can't believe in my heart of hearts that Kevin Feige didn't go in this with, and did not have a plan.
yeah. Do you think even Vision was planned to be Jarvis though?
Yeah,
Do you think?
yeah, yeah.
This was the
I'm,
first. Yeah, sorry. This
I'm
was
sure.
the first time I actually found out what Jarvis
Me too.
stands for.
Oh my
Did I,
God, me too.
did I write it down? Just a rather very
Very
intelligent
intelligent
system.
system. Yes. I didn't know that. Obviously, Jarvis is taken from Howard Stark's
Yeah.
Butler. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, when I read that and when I was doing some research for this, I was like,
That's
shut
very
up.
silly. They definitely crammed that in afterwards. Like like Tony was like, "What does Jarvis stand for?" And then he just came up with it
Well,
on the spot. Like for sure. Um,
well.
did you? I know, like, we sort of before we planned this show and stuff,
Mm,
we were kind of saying we weren't gonna like dive too much into behind the scenes movie wise, and
mm-mm.
maybe try and stick to talking about like the lore and stuff. But an interesting thing I heard was that Robert Downey Jr. like improved a lot of the lines in this, and it was kind of off-putting for the actors that he was doing it so
Oh,
much.
oh, I didn't know about the off-putting side. I knew that
Yeah,
he ad-libbed "I am Iron Man."
yeah. I think like you can sometimes see it on Gwyneth Paltrow's face when she's kind of like, when you do that kind of that smile when you're a bit confused, like
Like
because
what?
he's obviously dropping new lines in and she's trying to keep up with him. I think that was the line I read. She had felt like she had trouble keeping up because she didn't know what he
Yeah,
was going to say. Um, I wonder if
yeah.
he taught her improv skills like the hard way.
It's this is such a this is such a pivotal moment in RDJ's life. Like
Yeah.
this is such a lifeline. Like this isn't just Marvel reaching out and needing this to work in all the ways possible. This is
Mhm.
RDJ fighting for his life at this point.
Yeah.
He RDJ has a very sketchy history when it comes down to drugs, alcohol, arrests, you
Mhm.
name it. Downey Jr.'s done it.
Yeah, I can
But
remember my parents mentioning that at the time that this was like, the trailers were coming on for this, like, because they would have heard all that stuff. And I wouldn't have
yeah.
been switched on to like what was going on in Hollywood.
Well, we thought I mean, he's been such a figure in my family's life because Michaela was
Yeah.
a huge fan of Robert Downey Jr. Chaplin is one of her or was one of her favorite films at the time.
Yeah.
And we followed him, we followed his career and obviously his ups and his downs. And the last up he had before his last down
Mm.
was Ally McBeal. He'd gotten a guest spot on Ally McBeal. It worked out. He became a bit of a regular.
Yeah.
And then his final arrest happened.
Ah,
And this is the one where it literally is him on the bottom. Like,
yeah.
there's no coming back from this. Like, if he doesn't sort his life out, he might as well, it's not worth
Yeah.
even thinking about. So this is his redemption.
Hmm.
This is RDJ saying, look at what I can do. So I can kind of understand where the ad libbing came from, because he is he's really trying to
Yeah.
prove to everyone I am worth all of this.
Hmm. Yeah, and like I know like we talk about casting a lot on these podcasts, but I genuinely think this is one of those like impossible casting. Like you
Hmm.
could not recast this, if you know what I
No,
mean. It's insane how perfectly it worked out,
yeah,
and because of this, now like the design of Tony Stark is RDJ like
yeah,
forever. It seems
forever,
like in the comics, in the cartoons, anything.
forever. Up until, I mean, at the time, I didn't know jack about Iron Man or anything like that. So when
Yeah,
I started reading comics, I was like, oh, why is this is just perfect? Like the stars aligned. Like
yeah,
RDJ's face is Iron Man, and like Ant's like, no, that's just. But if you do go back and have a look at the
yeah.
older work, he does have a slight resemblance.
He started out a bit like Howard though, like the pencil mustache, like kind of.
Yes.
So so it's
Yeah.
interesting that they've used his like father in the movies to be like this. The he's like the link to the old world of Marvel. You sort of find
Hmm.
out once it goes on a bit more. But
Yeah.
it's cool that they've been able to like work in some redesigns, like being like, well, if we make Howard look like Golden Age or Silver Age Iron Man,
Hmm.
then that's fun for people who read it.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. So yeah, this is big. This is huge.
yeah,
And RDJ is just everything's riding on his shoulders.
yeah,
Everything.
it's very poetic as well, because
Hmm.
the movie starts out with like a very different but literal fall from grace, and like a
Yeah.
redemption within, like, it's accelerated, but what does he spend, like, a few weeks in that cave, and then he's like
It's
he's
enough
built a suit.
time. Well, this is because this is just having to prove Tony Stark's intelligence, because
Yeah,
you went to look at him, you're just looking at Playboy.
yeah,
There's nothing behind those eyes. He's dead
yeah.
inside.
Like
And
when he's messing around with like the guys in the truck, being like,
mhm.
no gang signs, he's like, I'm kidding, gang
Put him up.
throw it
Put
up.
him
Yeah.
up.
And this also starts his weird thing about mentioning social media, but when you think
Mm,
about it, if he was in like the papers a lot, he's probably got a bad
yeah.
relationship with paparazzi, and he wouldn't want any, but he literally in real life wouldn't want any videos of himself out there and things like
No.
that.
So when you do meet Tony for the first time,
Yeah,
you do think, oh wait, what am I looking at here, people? Come on, like this
like
is
yeah, like he's cool, but like he doesn't care. Like that's the thing you can get from him. He's talking about, yeah, like I love Pete. He's going to do like weapons demonstrations and
hmm
things like that. Um,
yeah.
and then
It's
yeah, his convoy gets hit by the Ten Rings, apparently, according to some of the story.
yeah, which I don't know how that was going to come into play, but they went there. So
Yeah,
to be honest, it's something that I could quite easily forget if they needed me to.
yeah, it
Like,
did. They put it to bed for a while, and then
mm,
brought it back a little bit, then put it to bed for a long while until
it's
Shang-Chi. Um,
it's like they
but
didn't know what
yeah,
they wanted to do with it, if they wanted to use it or not. And it was like, let's just keep this in the back pocket. And
yeah,
if we want to bring the 10 rings out, we could do that. If not, we could forget about it.
yeah, and it's weird because in the comics, the Ten Rings is like the Mandarin's, you know, criminal syndicate, but it also
Hmm.
refers to as 10 magical power rings. And I think that one of the bad guys does have like a noticeable ring on his finger, and being like, is it? But apparently the name of that guy, the one who gets like his face burnt in the cave,
Uh-huh.
apparently he's has the same name as like an alien, like a Kree person.
Oh,
And it's like, so they've done some creative licensing. Yen, is it
yeah.
Yensid?
Yinsen.
Yinsen, he is like in the original origin story, but he's like a Vietnamese man that he meets, because
Hmm.
they basically took it from Vietnam and put it into current day, like,
Yeah.
conflicts. Um, which when you like some of these scenes are actually quite hard to watch, like after we've, lived through all
Yeah.
these news cycles into 2024. Definitely a bit scarier than it was to me as a like back then when I was watching it.
No, yeah, rewatching, like having to watch and pay attention, because I love this film.
Yeah.
I love the original blueprint of the origin story,
Mhm.
which continues on throughout a few Marvel movies, and obviously we will get to them. But this is in my top five
Oh,
because of,
really?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's one that if I'm struggling for something to watch and I'm like, I'm in the mood for a superhero movie,
Mhm.
it's the first one I go to. And I have
Yes.
no intention of like doing like a full list and watch along. I just
Yeah.
love this movie so much.
No, that's good because I'm a fan of a good origin story.
Me
Like
too.
when how everyone's like, oh, X-Men 2's the best, X-Men, like Spider-Man 2's the best. I'm like, but I like the origin story. I like the pacing of like, the
Mhm.
characters finding things out. That's just always like appealed to me for some reason.
Finding their superheroism,
Yeah.
finding themselves. There's a lot of self-discovery in all of the origin stories that Marvel
Yeah.
do, and Tony's is probably one of the most profound ones. And especially as it goes on with Tony's story,
Yeah.
there's a lot of life imitating art, imitating life when it comes down
Yeah,
to this character.
definitely. And some of the substance abuse problems were actually in the Iron Man comics,
Yeah.
which was very like advanced for like the time when they were trying this. And I'm guessing that's probably why the audiences didn't latch on so much, because it
Yeah,
was it was probably quite a dark storyline when they were used to like, oh, where's the the fun action and monsters and stuff.
yeah, probably a bit too serious for them. But with Tony, I've totally lost my train of thought. I was going to go into something a bit deep there, but I've totally lost it.
Oh,
I've
it'll come
lost
back
it.
to you.
Yeah,
But this
probably at the
is
worst time.
this is our first sort of intro into the whole, he is a flawed hero
Mm,
physically as well as sort of mentally, but so he gets injured, and this is the first time we get the arc reactor, like the shrapnel heart
yes.
sort of story. And I thought that was quite interesting because it's like it's a punishment, um
Oh,
but it also gives him like a reason to be better, because he's like, right, I need to fix this, otherwise,
yeah.
I'll be dead.
It's a
And
permanent reminder of
yeah.
the weapons that he was creating
Mhm.
to do harm to others is now going to permanently do
Mhm.
harm to him. It's a
Yeah.
constant reminder to him. And the fact that he was managed to build something in order to help him is a reminder to himself of what it is he can actually accomplish.
Yeah, because you get the feeling that he's maybe been a bit hands off from the
Mm.
like the mechanical engineering side of
Yeah.
things. Because when he's like, oh, it's a miniature arc reactor. We have one that powers the lab and stuff. So it's like you kind of get he becomes nerd Tony again, rather than like the playboy
Yeah,
Tony.
there is one scene I absolutely love, and it's the perfect way to be able to introduce you to Tony Stark is the award ceremony where it
Yeah.
does the video package of him, and then you get to learn about I can't say his name. What's his name?
Obadiah.
Obadiah. That's it.
They
Sorry,
call they call him the Odie,
o-
don't they? What's
Obi, Obi,
Obi?
Obi. We'll call him Obi because I'll probably end up butchering his name all the way through it. Or Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
Um, the dude. He he is probably one of my favorite non-threat like really non-threatening in the grand scheme of Marvel villains
Yeah.
villain. Like
Yeah.
he's not that scary, but for some reason I absolutely love him.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of it's Jeff Bridges putting
Yeah,
on an
for sure.
amazing performance, because he flits back between sinister and really friendly like amazingly well, enough to almost like trick you as the viewer, where you're like,
There's
oh, maybe he does care, like, and then it's like, oh, he really doesn't care about
there's
anyone.
there's so many scenes of him being the father figure
Yeah.
and having that like one-on-one with Tony where it's so it's so effortless between the two of them. Like when
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
going, here's some pizza. No, you can't have pizza. Like,
yeah. And he's like, have two
but no, have the
slices.
pizza.
Yeah, yeah. Like, but it's that kind of like it's the strange father relationship where as soon as Tony does something against him, it's like immediate cut off.
Hmm.
You're dead to me, literally. um, but yeah, he's excellent. I would like the Marvel do get a lot of stick for killing off their villains too often, which means they can never come back. For like more development and stuff like that. I think this guy would have been good to stick around and have like a rival evil company because I think that would have been a good route to go down with him. But it's kind of mirrors the comics where I think he does die early on and is sort of replaced by like that hammer guy and stuff. So
Yeah, Jeff
yeah.
Bridges said that to get into his role, he had to like, go back and look at comics, but he
Mhm.
didn't have a lot to work with.
No, but apparently a lot of the stuff they rolled in is true to comics.
Yeah.
He's kind of a bit like a kingpin type of backstory, like a troubled child who will
Hmm.
do anything to get ahead. But the chess thing apparently is part of his like comic persona, where
Ah.
he was like really good at chess, and there's like a chessboard in his office in the movie, and he had some henchmen called like the chessmen, I think, at some point in the
Jeez.
comics.
They really are great with their names, aren't they?
Yeah, and you can I'm guessing they were probably dressed up as chess pieces because it was back then.
Imagine. That'd be so fun. That'd be so fun. Why is
But
that rook chasing me?
not the horsey. um,
No. Sorry.
uh, no, it's just what do you call it? Red Dwarf, isn't it? When he's playing chess. And I'll never call them the real names after that. The King Bish 3. Um, but yeah, like
Oh.
so this was the first on this like rewatch for this,
Yeah.
show, doing some extra research. This was the first time I noticed like, oh, they really do care about tiny comic references and even hidden like real world historical references. Because here's a one I found out which I thought was quite insane. But you know how he's playing the piano and
Hmm.
just at the pizza scene when he's like,
Yeah.
"How'd it go?" And he's like, "That bad, huh?" Like because he's just playing the piano and not talking to him. So the song he was writing is by Antonio Salieri, who was a famous rival of Mozart, as in like never as popular and famously sort of jealous and dismissive of Mozart. So that they're actually trying to do a whole like Obi isn't as talented as Tony and he wants his stuff, and it's like a proper like a real reference that they didn't call attention.
That is crazy. I should. My parents would be so disappointed in me. One of their favorite movies
Yeah.
is Amadeus.
Yeah.
Darn it. Oh, that's so impressive, though. That's like,
Yeah. And that they didn't do like it because I feel like a badly written movie would have him do his evil monologue and be like, "Have you ever heard of Antonio Salieri?" And you like actually spell it out for you while the music's playing or something like that.
that is
Um,
nuts. And what I did learn about an early draft of the script
mhm.
was that Tony was going to be the creator of Dr. Otto Octavius's tentacles from Spider-Man 2.
What's that even got? Oh, they were just gonna like reference like the Octavius disaster or something like that.
Something along those lines, but he was
Yeah,
mentioned in it. Oh, that was
that's
the
okay.
initial script of it. I'm kind of glad they left that out because if they wanted to create something and
Mhm.
not use the back of anything that's come before it, of
Yeah,
licenses they don't own,
yeah, that's a
then
bit
keep away
scary.
from them.
Yeah, I've got a little another deleted scene, but it's for the end. So, but along those similar lines, which is interesting. So I feel like it was like the nerds were just writing the script, being like, and then he can meet Aunt May, and like trying to cram as much stuff in as they can.
Well,
Um,
when John Favreau was thinking of actors as well, obviously
yeah,
Robert Downey Jr. was very touch and go
yeah.
because of where he was in his
So you
life.
had to have some backups.
Yeah, John Favreau's back up. I'm so glad they did not go down this route. We wouldn't be talking today about this. Marvel would
Okay.
not be a thing. This movie would never have taken off. But it was his backup was Clive Owen.
Oh wow, that's it. Yeah, that's not like just
Yeah.
on the head shape alone. That's not the right thing.
Oh, he's just, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
One of my guilty pleasures is King Arthur, but it
yeah,
ain't for
yeah.
him. It's not because of him. But the second choice, to back up Clive Owen was Sam Rockwell.
Okay, bit closer.
Yeah, but because obviously RDJ comes in, they're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, we have something for you later on."
Hold that thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
like these stories of like what could have been are very interesting.
oh, so glad
So
it's not Clive
interesting
Owen.
that they sometimes act on it in these very movies later on. But yeah, like
If we get a variant
yeah,
that is Tony Stark with Clive Owen,
that would be
I'm out.
funny. It would be funny though. It's better than when people were scaring me saying Tom Cruise was gonna show up as alternate Iron Man.
Oh, I remember that.
That was
But when,
terrifying.
but isn't it so crazy that all these rumors of like who Iron Man was going to be, and then RDJ just comes back and like, hey, bitch, I'm someone else
Yeah,
now.
yeah, and also he just wasn't in multiverse at all, so there
No,
was no need for the rumors.
exactly. Did you know? I'm going to give you a did you know?
Might not.
There are 5 sets of armors in this film, and
No, actually.
I'm going to read back what I've wrote because I don't want to do this injustice because it does reference
Yeah.
the source material. So there's 5 sets of armor in the film, all inspired from the Iron Man comics. So
Mhm.
Mark One armor suits first suit. What? Mark One armor? Does that make sense?
Yeah, like it'll it's that's the one he made in the cave with a box
Right.
of
Oh, okay.
scraps.
Okay then. Right. Okay, that does make sense. So his first suit is simply a suit constructed of iron.
Yeah.
Mark II armor is a silver suit. The prototype Stark develops. This can also be counted as the War Machine armor, as
Yes,
that
'cause it's
Rhodey
on a
looks at
rack
later
later
on.
on, isn't it?
Yeah, and he goes,
Yeah.
I'll get to you later. Mark III armor is the final red and gold armor.
Yeah.
Jarvis first presents the Mark III armor in full gold.
Yeah.
It looks to pay a tribute to the all gold Golden Avenger armor Iron Man wore early in his career.
Yes.
Jarvis later presents the armor in silver and red, marking it to look almost identical to Iron Man's Silver Centurion armor that he wore in the 1980s.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to read that so I didn't butcher that last bit.
Oh no, yeah, it's nice to get the comic references in, like, and actually say like where they came from. Um, I actually consulted one of our friends and experts on the making of the
Ooh.
armor. I
Mm.
contacted Top Grump's very own Chris, who is a real life welder,
Oh my god, I never
because
even put two and two together
because
there.
there is a line about welding early on
So
about
you went to
this.
Chris.
I was like, how do you feel about this line where Iron Man says, I need welding gear. I don't care if it's acetylene or propane. And so
Right.
Chris, asked some questions. But so apparently that line, like, we're thinking it's him saying he doesn't care if it's bad welding fuel like propane or good welding fuel like acetylene, because he says that's the best for welding, and propane's more for like like changing the finish on something,
Right.
So yeah,
I would never have thought to go to Chris for
I know.
anything to do with the Iron Man suit.
I told him whenever it comes back, because he was asking us like what it's made of, and I'm like, that ex old missiles from the Afghanistan war era, I guess. Um, but I was like, if there's ever any more welding or workshop scenes come up, I might get him to watch them and analyze them for us.
We'll get a Chris analysis. I can't even say it there.
Yeah,
Chris analysis. You know what I mean.
I did.
Uh,
No, it's gonna. We'll have to call it welding wisdom with Chris.
that is brilliant. That is genius. I
Yeah,
do remember at the height of because Iron Man just took off and took
yeah,
off with, the merchandise, and you couldn't move without seeing his red and gold suit. My
Yeah.
husband had the most obnoxious phone case, and it was like,
Yeah.
the ones where your phone fits in it, but then the phone case goes
Oh,
all the way around it. And it was Iron Man's
like suit
suit.
design.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And it opened up, and the arc reactor's in the middle, and it lights
Yeah.
up, and it was so obnoxious. But I do remember him getting that, and I was like, because I'm still in my goth music phase at that time, and I'm like, what the shit is that?
Oh, yeah, like what do you think of the design? I'm not the biggest fan of like red color schemes like in general. But I think this suit, the one that's like just behind me,
Hmm.
on the but like I think that's one of my favorite sort of looks for Iron Man across the whole series. I mean, maybe I'll change my mind once we see more in action, but just
Yeah.
remembering back, I think this one's up there.
This is probably one for me, and maybe I might change my mind when we come to
Mhm.
say Iron Man 3, because that's where we do get to see a lot more of the Iron Man suits.
Yeah.
But it's iconic, and it's
It still
really
looks very mechanical, which I like.
and
Like
it's tidy as well. Like
yeah,
it looks super duper tidy. It looks how I would expect the perfectionist of
yeah,
Tony Stark to
yeah.
create a suit.
Also bigger shoulders than I'm used to. When he first puts it on, I'm like, oh, he's like wide shoulders on this
This is what
thing.
I love is the proportion of things. When
Hmm.
I was writing, I did an article on Ramona Frandon.
Yeah.
She was the comic book artist for Aquaman,
Oh
and
yeah.
she created Aquaboy.
Yeah.
I think that's who it was, but yeah, she was an artist, and she was the first woman who was drawing Aquaman. I've got to remember the audience that we have. And she was the first person to proportion superheroes in the right
Correctly.
way. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so now, because I've like done so much deep dive on her practice and how she managed to get this rolled out to like, listen, men do not have massive bodies and tiny waists and legs.
Yeah.
Like she's managed to get the proportion size perfect. So when I look at proportion, especially on the suit, I'm like, oh, that's so pleasing to see that
Yeah.
it all fits in with how a body should look, and it's not exaggerated. I know Orbeez is like huge, but
Yeah.
he is in a way a huge person in his
Yeah.
his personality, his vindictiveness. It's all built in. Like it his suit makes sense to him.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I love that sort of like trope where like the bad guys just like no, like more weapons, like bigger, like it's
Yeah.
like, but then it turns out it's not always like the best design to just be bigger and stronger than like everyone else. um but yeah, so we get a few, like there's quite a lot of comedy in this movie, isn't there? Like which I always forget, like there's all that stuff
Yes.
where he's like testing the flight stabilizers and stuff with the recurring gag of his robot friend who's trying to fire extinguish him.
What was the robots called in Red Dwarf?
Oh, are they called
The shudders, the
scutters or
scutters.
something?
That's what
Yeah,
they reminded me of so
it
much.
is.
It's when he goes, "Stop,
Yeah,
no."
that's the second Red Dwarf reference.
Yes.
It's everywhere.
There's one line in particular that I find funny, and it probably isn't meant to be funny, but it's the
Yeah.
delivery of Jeff Bridges that does it. It's the
uh
Tony Stark managed to build this in a cave on his own.
with a box of scraps. Do you know, this is a fun one for you? Do you know who he's shouting at? Like the actor, who that
No,
is? It's Ralphie from A Christmas Story.
shut up.
It really is. And apparently he comes back as like a scientist in one of the TV shows, I think. I can't quite
Oh, Agents of
remember.
Shield, maybe.
Possibly. No, I think it's in the MCU timeline proper.
Oh,
But I think it's like way later on. But it's fun that they kind of keep these actors around and sort of give them cameos if they're not dead.
so, so Agents of Shield, is that canon anymore or not?
I don't think so, because they released the Terrigen mist on the Earth at some point, and nobody talked about that.
Yeah, that's some things that like way down the line that I
Yeah.
will want to bring up. I am an Inhuman fan, and
Okay.
very disappointed that a certain superhero who did very well in her TV show did not get her original arc, and they're not going
Hmm.
down the Inhuman route. Even though we have seen Black Bolt, don't get me started. I
Oh
will not
yeah,
stop.
totally did. No,
Yeah,
we can dig into like we might have time to dig into the
yeah.
Inhumans TV show at some point.
I'm probably the only person who actually I really love them. Like I
I
love
would
them in
have
the
tried to watch
comics.
it, but I did not see it available anywhere, I think, when it was out.
It's not terrible. It
Yeah.
really isn't. Medusa's one of my favorite Inhumans, and she
Yeah.
is done so well in that program. But yeah,
Okay. Well,
might be something we'll
that's
come to later. And but I will probably get really angry when we do Miss Marvel.
oh yeah, but I'm up you with that because I love Miss Marvel, the TV show and the comic. So yeah,
The comics are some of my
the fan
favorite comics.
reaction was infuriating.
But we're not there yet. We're
No,
still
no,
in 2008. We're still in Happy Land.
yeah,
Toxic fans, they're not
yeah.
quite there yet.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we get all these fun little workshop skits and everything. Him being like, maybe some hot rod red will finish the suit. Like, the gold's a bit gaudy type of thing. And it's interesting. I was thinking about this. You know how like sometimes movie tech predicts the future.
Mm,
This kind of did the opposite, where they've predicted a future of like, oh, people will have consumer grade robot arms that help them with the tasks, but like he would have been 3D printing the Iron Man bits or something if it was like
yeah,
that's the future we ended up in,
yeah.
which is
3D.
a lot more disappointing than robot arms. Let's face it.
That is very true. But
Yeah,
this is one of mine. Like I say, my opinion might change later on down the line, and that's totally fine. But as I stand right now, looking at what's behind you, it is 1-0. He's been
he's
there the
behind me,
whole
isn't he?
time. He's been there the whole time. That
Yeah.
is one of my favorite suits. But and
Yeah.
also to go back to what you were saying, this movie does have a lot of comedy relief in it, and
Mhm.
but it also has its seriousness as well.
Yeah, yeah. There's some very like serious moments, and he has a few brushes with death, including that. I suppose, yeah, we'll save it till later. But there's a horrible sort of near death scene for our hero in a bit. But I kind of wanted to talk about the party and stuff, and like
Right.
Pepper Potts. How do you feel about Gwyneth Paltrow Pepper Potts?
I'm not mad. I'm
No,
not. No, no, not at all.
yeah,
This is probably the role that she was most suited to.
yeah,
Um, don't get me wrong. Iron Man 3 is a bit sketchy for me, but we're not there yet.
mm,
We're still
yeah,
here. No, I'm not mad at the like. I'm not a fan of Gwyneth Paltrow as a person.
yeah,
Her views and my views don't meet up.
yeah.
But as Pepper Potts, she kind of did the part all right. It wasn't
Yeah,
terrible.
it's quite cute, isn't it? Like the relationship, because it's not as creepy as it could be when it's like
Mm,
boss and assistant sort of flirting a lot at work. But I think they do it about as well as they could in this time period where they don't make it like really seedy. Like she's got
no.
plenty of power in the relationship. Because even though she is like an assistant, she's like, you wouldn't last 10 minutes without me type of thing.
He wouldn't, and that's very evident from the first minute you
Yeah.
see Pepper, and
Yeah.
especially her whole taking out the trash
That's
comment.
a little bit, what would you call it? Like playing up to the patriarchy for old Pepper
Y-
there.
Yeah. So yeah, and I know Gwyneth Paltrow only took this role because it was filmed 10 minutes away from her house.
Okay, well, I like that attitude in a superstar because, like, why work harder than you
Her
have
kids
to?
her kids were really young,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
meant that she could do a 9 to 5 and go home and be with her kids. So that's the
yeah.
reason why she's really relaxed in this film.
Oh,
And
yeah,
probably is the reason why I'm not annoyed by her.
yeah.
She's just pretty chill.
It's very subtle because even when she sort of has a bit of a panic about like Nelly kissing Tony, she's like, she shuts it down pretty quick and she's like, "Go get me a drink," sort of thing, and then
How
then
many olives? I'll have
stuff
3.
kicks off in Jensen's hometown, which I noticed this time. It's the same town he was talking about,
Oh,
where his
really?
family lived. So I think that's what triggers Tony to be like,
Well,
"No, I need to go."
well, yeah, because Jensen's given, Jensen's shown him a life that Tony would never have
Yeah,
witnessed, never understand. Like, yes, but also kind of mirrors Tony's in a way, but
mhm.
not as. There's two. It's like two different paths that went on.
Yeah, but they both
Um,
love like, engineering and science and stuff. But
they've also
yeah.
lost, like, Tony lost his parents,
Mhm.
he's lost his family, there's grief there, there's loss, so there's that connection, there's obviously the love for science, but their lifestyles, that's what I was getting at, their
Yeah.
lifestyles are totally different, and it's a life that Tony would never, a lifestyle that Tony would never understand. And even
Mhm.
Jensen, if he was put into Tony's shoes, he would be
Yeah.
horrified at how Tony lived.
And we get to see him in Iron Man 3. He gets blown off at the New Year's party conference thing that they're at.
It's
'Cause
been a
that's who
while since I've seen
No,
Iron
yeah,
Man
that's
3.
that's who comes up to him. Like that's the same character because he's like, "Oh, I met you at like a conference like early on." And he's like, because he just did that thing, like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like exactly. My people will talk to your people. Like how he's doing to Agent Coulson throughout the whole movie. He just
Agent
keeps showing up like a
Coulson,
little lost dog, just being
a,
like,
a character that we only were meant to see in this movie. There was
really?
no, yeah, he wasn't going to be written in for anything else. But
It was
then,
supposed to be like he was just face of the faceless organization.
but
Yeah,
and he wasn't. But Feige was like, no,
he's really
he's
good.
he's really good. Like, yeah,
He's just so like charming. Like I don't know what it is about him. Like it's not nothing that he says is like especially amazing, but I think he's just got like a really nice voice and like
comment.
a nice face and everything. And you're just like, oh.
Oh, you got a nice face.
Yeah, like it's not even really like his performance. I think it's just like him as a person. So I can see why they took a shine to him after like spending some time on set.
Yeah, but he's made a whole career out of
Yeah.
Coulson.
Oh yeah.
This is we see him, and I love the fact that he is the connecting part to each Avenger.
Yeah.
He's the one who finds them.
Yeah, and I love how there's just it's very much like this is like a mundane thing, but how he
Yeah,
just can't get an appointment with them. It just takes him forever. But then it
and
ends up sort of saving the day because he scheduled his appointment for like just the right time to sort of
he
come
was
in.
there at the right moment, right
Yeah.
time, and Pepper's like, "Yeah, we'll take the meeting now. Let's go, let's go,
Yeah.
let's go."
Saves our life. But yeah, so then we get our first action Iron Man in action when he takes on
Mm.
the sort of militant group in the little war-torn town. Um, and this
This
is where you
is
get the cool like tank moment that's behind me.
Yeah, this is Tony. This is Tony a bit more sharper, a bit more
Yeah.
trained up. He's still not perfect, but
No.
would you imagine him to be? This is his first outing in this suit. But that walking away, cool
Yeah.
guys don't look at explosions. He is one of them.
And I love the detail that there's like bullet holes on his suit as well. So it's like
Yeah,
he's actually like took damage. It's not like in future movies where it's just like, it's sort of a mesh of
yeah.
like metal bits and stuff. Like this is like a real physical suit.
Yeah, and because the suit does change through time, like
Yeah.
we don't. I think it's nanotechnology that's used
Yeah.
later on, so it's nothing. Which I don't mind because it's
Mhm.
sleek, but there's
Yeah.
just something so special about the
Yeah.
bulkiness and the realism of this suit.
Yeah, and it really does hammer home like how like Obi's like ironmonger suit, which I don't think they ever call. He calls himself an ironmonger at some point, but
Yeah,
they never like now I'm ironmonger like type of thing,
that
like
would
what
have
you would
been
expect.
so cool.
What he says to like Tony is like when he's trying to like talk him back into the weapons thing. He's like, "Well, ironmongers, like this is what we do," type of thing,
Hmm.
and he's like, "It's not what I do." Because all he wants to do when he comes back home is like stop the weapon sales, create sustainable energy, I guess,
Yeah.
like for everyone. um which is
Well,
nice.
he wants to be the good guy for once. He's
Yeah.
been the bad guy for so long that he wants his
Mm.
redemption. And what other way to do it than to give back?
And that's what leads us into the horrible scene where he takes
Mm.
out his arc reactor heart.
Oh, that
Obi
noise.
does. It's horrible, isn't it?
That squishy noise, and it's
Yeah.
the lift and like the stillness of Downey Jr., the
Mhm.
eye pop, like, oh my gosh, that is some intense stuff.
Yeah, I hate it. It's like it's just one of those like really tense things that sometimes you get in movies, like when a character like can't breathe for whatever reason, where you just like you're like holding your breath with them because you just
Yes.
want them to get out of it.
Breathe, God damn it, breathe. But yeah,
Yeah.
this is this the point where this is Obi showing his true colors, and
Yeah. I mean, he did it a little bit before, like at the parties, like who do you think
that's
like
right.
cut you out and stuff like that? Like,
But you just think that's it's a business thing, and yes,
yeah.
he would be completely pissed off
Mhm.
if this snot-nosed kid who he has had to like kind of rear into the business mode
Yeah.
to take over his farm. Like he's done all the hard work. Tony just
Yeah.
comes in at the end, and yeah, of course he's going to be pissed, but not to the degree of almost taking his heart out.
Yeah. Which like I say is very true to like the comic book character. Like he's basically a psychopath who'll do anything to get ahead in life,
Mm,
including like, murdering family members of like business rivals to like unsettle them and things. So it's very good that they just went there immediately and didn't try and make it a whole like, like a you're a son to me like type of thing.
yeah,
Like
yeah. There's a very quick disconnect between the
yeah,
two
totally.
when it all kicks off. But that scene is it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's not great. So
Do you
to
know how they
watch,
did the prosthesis for some of that as well? It was
no,
like it was
and you
the
think I would look into that?
No, it's all right. It was that technique they use where the characters, it's like they're standing up, but then the body is laid out in front of them, like the prosthetic body.
Oh,
So that's
really?
how she can reach into his chest and stuff, because he's just stood like upright, like with his head out the top.
Okay,
And that's why
interesting.
they shine like a lot of lights on it, so you can't really see like the seams and things like that.
They've they've started using a lot more prosthetics in Marvel movies. One of
Which
them
I'm happy
being,
for, because like even if it's like a silly alien mask face that doesn't exist in real life,
mhm.
I'd rather they tried that than it just all be CGI. Because even like
Yeah,
the scrolls, they kind of look funky, but they're aliens, so I'm like, they're gonna look weird
yeah.
anyway.
They don't have they don't. Who said they were perfect?
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
said their faces were like completely symmetrical? No, it doesn't need to be that way. And the most impressive one, and I know I'm jumping a few years here,
Mhm.
is Chris Pratt, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. The the body that
Yeah,
when he's being carried out, that is a prosthetic body. That
that's
is not
scary.
Chris Pratt. There's
Yeah,
no way in God's earth Karen Gillan could have ever carried Chris Pratt the way she did there.
yeah. But it's nice though because it actually gives the scene like physical
Hmm.
presence and weight. Which obviously when actors are just pretending to carry
Yeah.
stuff, you can always kind of tell.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an emotion left out. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
loving that. I love their use of prosthetics, but I didn't even put two and two together with this. I generally thought she was going into his heart.
Yeah, like just or they just CGI'd it, like she was just reaching into a green
I'm not
screen
even
hole.
that's it. No, I'm not even normally when it comes to stuff like that, because of doing monsters has made us
Yeah,
look at things a lot differently.
yeah.
I didn't even think about that. I didn't even go, oh, I wonder how they did that. I'm just like, "Oh, she's putting her hand in the
Yeah.
heart. Ew.
But I'm glad they went through the effort because it looks sick. It's like it's really
Yeah.
uncomfortable anytime they do like the heart switch over scene
It's
is really uncomfortable. It's like,
it makes me think of every time them machines where it's like just a line and you've got to do the and you get your
yeah,
buzz. It makes me think of one of them. Is like that in
yeah.
his heart.
He's like, don't touch the case, and she immediately does,
And
obviously.
then he buzzes, and I'm like, oh, you
Yeah.
touched it.
um, but yeah, so yeah, so we get this, and this is the whole like the whole proof that Tony Stark has a heart thing, because like that's the way he gets it back, because she has it framed for him in this like kind of crystal box thing. It's like can't tell if it's encased or if it's just rattling around in there, but that's the only way he gets to save his life because he has to smash that and put his old rusty looking arc reactor back in.
The
um
bacteria on that, my friend.
uh, and that gives us like the ticking clock for the end where he's like, oh, this can't power the suit as well as the last one did, so he's like only
Hmm.
got like 30% power or something.
But
So
enough time.
yeah, what did you think of the little alien reference when they walk into the warehouse and then there's all the chains hanging down and you're like, Where's the monster?
Where are we?
And then
Why have so many chains?
yeah, like I don't know whether just is it those chains that like carry stuff across the ceiling? Was that how they were wheeling the armor
I'm
around?
guessing there's some use for them. Pulley and chains, like is like are we
Yeah,
going back kind of
yeah.
thing to practical? We should ask Chris.
Oh yeah, true. But I do like that you just have like Pepper sort of looking into the darkness and then the eyes light up on the ironmonger thing.
Oh, that is such a scene. That like
Yeah.
there's scenes in movies, and I don't know if you do this where you look at it and go, that would be an amazing picture.
Yeah, like yeah, just if you like got the perfect frame
Yeah.
of it. Yeah, yeah.
And I often think is that, especially after Guardians of the Galaxy, because with Guardians, there's a lot of still frames in there where it's movie posters. It's
Yeah.
this, it's that. And that's what makes me think of it. And that is a perfect moment right there. That right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and we get a whole sort of, a little bit of a it's maybe not slasher, it's maybe more like Terminator, like the
It's
first Terminator.
Terminator. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, it's kind of like a cross between Terminator 2 and Terminator because you got the chains
Yeah.
and that, and you're like, it's very
And
industrial on in Terminator
and
2
the
at the
scary
end.
like,
Yeah.
chasing guys everywhere and crushing things. Um
Crush.
but yeah, then Tony, uses some clever techniques, like taking him too far up into the air, which he's already tested on himself.
So he knows
It doesn't work, yeah.
no, and it's the whole oh no moment
Yeah.
as he's falling back.
um he still like comes back, but like Tony uses like everything he's learned about the armor, like he
Hmm.
sort of pulls the wires out the back to disconnect the eye
Yeah,
socket, so he has to take the helmet off and everything. um
he's
yeah, and then they just then it is very superhero action movie, and they just zap him with a big thing.
yeah, and then he's gone and never heard
Yeah,
of again, and
yeah,
that's such a damn shame because Jeff Bridges was perfect. But
yeah,
this is kind of like like I said earlier, blueprint of origin movies for um Marvel. And
yeah,
what you'll see in another movie later on down the line is another bad guy who very much resembles Obadiah Stane,
yeah.
which is in Ant-Man.
Yeah, yeah, true. And like even as I said, like in the comics, like is it Justin Hammer who's
Justin
in
Hammer,
like
yeah.
he does become like Ironmonger at some point. Like I don't know if it's for a long time or whatever, but they have very much gone with like the comics sort of progression of like, okay, well after this guy was taken care of, then all the armor wars stuff starts coming in with everyone else trying to get a piece of the pie.
Yeah. Um, the ending with Tony and the is it he where he eats the cheeseburger or is it the
he has
first?
he has two at the start because
Yeah, that's
because he's
right.
like because he's like, you got to put that away, and he's like, all right, I've only had one. And then he has another one in his pocket when he gets in. Apparently that has some real world references, because apparently that was a turning point for Robert Downey Jr. when he was sort of at a low point and he got a really bad Burger King burger.
I
and he
read
was
this.
and he was like, this burger's so bad, and it made him go and like dump his like stash in the ocean and stuff like that, like literally just be like, I want all of this out of my car. um and apparently he turned his life around, but I don't know if that's a good thing for the Burger King company or a bad thing. I can't really tell.
I'm sure because of it, the end he in an interview with British Empire magazine, Downey Jr. thanked Burger King for helping
Yeah.
him get straight edge in 2003. With a car full of drugs, he had a Burger King that was so disgusting it made him rethink his life and and
Yeah.
dump the drugs in the ocean.
Yep.
He repeats this with his impromptu sit down session at the press upon his return from captivity. Burger King also promoted the film with toys based on the movie as
Yeah.
well as the sequel.
That's
Oh, that's
that's very funny.
amazing. Just imagine like your lowest point and you're like, you're eating like McDonald's or Burger King, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm done.
To be honest, I don't know if I've ever had like a that bad fast food chain food. So I
I
could
don't
see it
think I
happen.
have either.
I could see it happening when you order from a new takeaway and you're like, oh no.
That's a bit disappointing.
I've wasted 30 quid.
Oh, I
The
am so
worst.
pleased. I am so pleased I am on a no sugar, no fast food diet at the moment because my God,
Same.
it's expensive.
You're right. Um, but yeah, like so then it kind of like it does accelerate quite quickly, doesn't it? Like the
Yeah.
movie, you kind of just get the press scene, the press conference again, and then you're like, he takes the pause and he's like, I am Iron Man.
It's the
um,
buzz, it's the
yeah.
noise, it's the everything that's like in that room, and then he
Hmm.
just it goes quiet for him, and he's like, "Yeah, man."
Yeah. Because like that was the thing that they hung on to in the comics apparently for a long time, like years and years, was that he was like his bodyguard. That was how they would get around the secret identity.
Remember that. That's right.
Yeah.
Until he obviously is the most obnoxious person in the world,
Yeah.
apart from another obnoxious character who I couldn't wait to see on screen face to face with each other was Strange. Doctor
Oh
Strange.
yeah.
Him and Tony in the comics are so alike. It
Yeah.
is quite scary. So when it came down to them being on screen together, I was like, let's let's see how the brains match up here.
Yeah. And they kind of immediately like butt heads.
Hit each other because they're exactly the same person.
And
They're so
unfortunately,
arrogant.
yeah, and unfortunately Tony loves to make jokes and
Mm,
Doctor Strange is very easy to make jokes about.
yes, yeah, absolutely. I love the ending of this though because it's so quick that it's like you don't even get a moment to think, oh,
Yeah.
what has he just done? And the credits are coming up.
AC/DC kicks in. Yeah.
I am
Oh no,
Iron
sorry. Yeah, no,
Man,
it goes to that. I forgot about that.
doing whatever a iron can.
It
Sorry.
starts off with AC/DC, ends with Black Sabbath. Sorry.
Yes. But then we get the first of what becomes almost a staple now. Like I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but regardless if it's a Marvel movie, I'm
Yeah.
still waiting at the end of the credits.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we've talked about this on like the Nerdy Up North podcast before, but there was definitely movies that had these, but they were usually bad ones. Like it was the
Mario
movie,
Brothers.
yeah, and like Street Fighter has one and
Yes.
stuff like that, where like a hand comes out of the rubble, or like I think, yeah, and then you'd get like the end question mark. It was always like a really schlocky, like, B
Yeah.
movie trope.
It's not old, but it
Yeah.
is something
Oh,
that oh.
remember the Freddy and Jason thing as well with the,
The
yeah,
hand.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
and
he's
that
dragging the yeah.
that
Yep.
didn't pay off for like a decade or something. I don't think.
It didn't, but we got there. But yeah, this is the first of all of the
Yeah,
end credit scenes, and one that I feel like if you watch this in the cinema on its release in
yeah.
2008, you may have lost your shit.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it when you like think of how
Like,
important it is.
it's iconic.
Yeah.
It's not only Samuel L. Jackson walking into a room,
Mhm.
it's Nick Fury walking
Yeah.
into a room.
The best Nick Fury as well, the
The
ultimate
best.
swan.
Not the David Hasselhoff one.
with with the white sideburns.
That was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury,
Yep.
and it's the Avengers Initiative.
Yes. And that's kind of all you get, isn't it? He's like, I want to talk to you about the Avengers initiative.
End.
Yep.
That's all you
And which
need.
for big time fans, even me as someone who was just getting into Marvel, like I
Hmm.
still knew what the Avengers were. I knew they were like the Justice League, but for Marvel, you know. Um,
See, I just knew X-Men, and that's
yeah.
only because of Ant. Like up
Mhm.
at this point of my life, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I do
I mean,
now,
there
but
is
not
like
then.
there is an alternate history where we just got like a Wolverine film, and then it was like the Professor X shows up at the end. Like there was definitely a world where that was our X-Men, like a much slower start.
Hmm.
But yeah, like this was incredible back in the day because not only was it something that I think like nerds, it's just like tailor made to like make us excited about the next thing and get like the imagination going, but it's also friggin' Samuel L. Jackson being saved for like a tiny cameo at the end, but he's in full outfit and everything, like, fully character designed. It's not just a voice.
Yeah, Mace
Um,
Windu is standing in front of me in a
yeah,
trench coat and an eye patch.
and he looks amazing. Like, I know they've kind of
Yes.
let it slide a bit in recent things,
I've
but
not
right,
seen that, so that didn't happen.
but like right now in this era, he looks like incredible with like the long trench coat and everything, and yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of good things to say about Nick Fury as we go
Yeah.
along, and this is just the chef's kiss of all endings.
What did you watch much Samuel L. like as a when you were growing up or anything? Because like for me, it was like Die Hard 3 would have been like the one I
Uh,
watched the most with him in. So that's quite nostalgic.
um,
I feel like I've always liked him.
Unbreakable. So
Mm.
Unbreakable is one of my mum's favorite films,
Oh,
and
cool.
used to
He's
make me
evil in
watch it.
that one
He
though.
is. But I my original surname was Jackson.
Oh, nice.
So I do get called Samuel L quite a lot,
Yeah,
even though
definitely.
I have not had that name for many, 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 many years.
But if we get you an eye patch though for the rest of this podcast.
Honestly, how I've not had one before is
Yeah.
quite scary for me, given how accident prone I am.
I do actually own an eye patch
Shut
somewhere.
up.
Not just a novelty one.
Oh, I was
Um,
going to say, hopefully it's not a medical one and I'm like
no, no, no,
stealing your
no.
medical eye patch off you.
Stealing my gimmick. Um, but yeah, like I've often called myself the sort of Nick Fury of Nerdy Up North because I like to recruit people every now and then.
You do.
I like to go and talk to them about the Twitch
do, you,
initiative.
do you just go the Twitch initiative
Yeah,
and then just walk away?
yeah, hand them a dossier with their face on it. This is a fun thing though. In
Mm.
the had deleted some deleted lines where he didn't walk away, if that makes sense. So
Right?
this is what I was saying, linked back to you talking about Professor Doctor Octopus,
Mm-hmm.
where you were saying like they didn't really have the rights to be throwing that kind of
Yeah.
name around that early on. So in the original one, and this line is actually like referenced in future, as in like you just have to imagine they had this conversation, but they kind
Mm-hmm.
of did have part of it. So originally he says like he walks up to him, he's like, as if gamma accidents, radioactive bug bites, and assorted mutants weren't enough, I have to deal with a spoiled brat who doesn't play well with others and wants to keep all his toys to himself.
I can hear Samuel L. Jackson
Yeah.
saying that.
So that's referenced in
Ah,
Avengers though. Do you remember when he's like,
yes.
oh, didn't you say I was like, narcissistic, didn't play well with others type of thing,
Uh-huh.
like keep all my toys to myself. So it's they got to work back to it, and in our minds it was like, oh, just an unheard
Throwaway.
conversation, but technically they filmed the first part of that conversation.
Oh, it's like it does feel like a throwaway comment, like something that we're not like Tony's obviously gone
Yeah,
into the files when he shouldn't have and
yeah,
checked
or
out
like
what they've said
or
about
like
him.
after the scene cut to black, they had this conversation about like the
Yeah.
Hulk and Spider-Man, but Tony just never mentioned it out loud.
No.
So
Well,
he doesn't care.
why would he? Why would he?
Yeah.
Um, have you got anything else before I go on to the comics that inspired Iron Man?
Just one last thing.
Yeah.
The Stan Lee cameo,
Oh
which was a,
shit.
which is
Yes.
another standout trope.
Oh, and one that we will never forget because I even wrote down the time of when he appears in the movie. And, like Jake messaged him was like, "Listen, we can't forget Stanley," and it's like, "No, of course we can't forget
Yeah.
Stanley." Yeah, Stanley at around 1 hour 8 minutes.
Yeah.
What am I doing? A boxing announcement, weighing in at 1 hour 8 minutes. That's when
Yeah.
you have the first Marvel, because he's not the
Yes.
first cameo, but it's his
No,
first Marvel Studios cameo.
definitely. It's just the first one in this line, but he did show up in Spider-Man quite a bit.
Fantastic Four
Oh yeah, he's the mailman, isn't he?
in the Baxter Buildings, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But okay, so in this one you think he's Hugh Hefner, but apparently he's credited as Stan Lee.
Yeah.
So what that means is there is another deleted scene that explains this, that Iron Man thought he was Hugh, but apparently there's a line where he's like, oh, it's Stan, like, oh, I get that a lot type of thing. So it's Stan Lee, but he's acting like Hugh Hefner in a universe where Hugh Hefner also exists. So
Right.
that's how complicated it gets.
I just thought because he had the red smoking jacket
Yeah,
on, he had two pretty ladies
yeah,
at his side, like he just got confused and Stan
yeah,
just went, okay.
yeah, definitely. That's kind of the gist of it. So Iron Man gets it wrong, but he gets that a lot.
That is
um,
one thing we will be doing throughout this is every Stanley
yeah.
cameo.
And if we forget, we'll make a TikTok about it because it might happen. There's a lot of movies.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that we want to remember to do. Like this is a
Yeah.
pilot for us in a way.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had like, if anyone is joining right now, we've had some practice doing podcasts and video streams for Nerdy Up
Yeah.
North over the years. And
3 years to be precise.
Me and Sammy are always very harsh on ourselves and like to try and like improve every time.
Yeah, I will be rewatching this back, taking notes, and be like, Jay. But it's just because I do so many. I have to
Yeah,
make sure. I want to make sure that not all of them are the same. I'm not. Do you know?
yeah.
I am multi-layered. I
Oh
have a
yeah.
lot of layers going on, and I want to make sure that each one of. Hence the reason I have so many Instagram accounts.
Yeah.
But that's another thing.
Oh, I messed up and missed one thing.
Mm.
You do get a quick shot of the Captain America shield in the workshop, just on a table.
You do. Though that is something that I will look at going
Yeah,
forward because there's a lot of little Easter eggs,
yeah,
and that is one of them because I remember Anth pointing it out to me, and I'm just going, hmm?
yeah. That,
Little did I
that's
know my
yeah. That's
favorite
kind.
character's shield's on the bench.
Oh yeah, that's probably the most important one in this one because I did look at Easter eggs. A lot of them are like company names and stuff that
Mm.
is just like a quick comic book reference. Like there's
Hmm.
some like energy company name and stuff like that on a lot of trucks and stuff, but it doesn't really come up in the MCU. So
Yeah.
I think we've hit the important ones though, like future character mentions and things like that.
I will make sure that my Easter egg knowledge is on point going forward. Especially, it's very important in the first phase because there's a
Yes,
lot of groundwork being laid leading up to the Avengers.
yes.
So yeah, I'll make sure I didn't even think of that, and I knew
No, no,
that.
you're all right. Now I'll have to say thank you to the New Rockstars YouTube channel who do very good stuff on this kind of thing, and I watch some of their videos to see things I would never be able to see.
Yeah, me and Dan use one on monsters, and it's a guy
Yeah,
who does kill counts.
yeah. No,
So
well,
this it makes our job so much easier.
yeah, and amazing guys have lots of fun. If you need full on like technical breakdowns, they're the
Yeah,
guys.
they
We just
are.
talk about the things we like.
Exactly. And we chuck a fun few facts in there as we
Yeah.
go along. As fun facts, I don't know if it's a fun fact, but it is the comics that inspired Iron Man.
Hmm.
So each week I'm going to try and give you the comics that surround the movie.
Yeah.
Um, the first one being Tales of the Suspense, issue 39, The Birth of Iron Man. You are right, while
Mm.
in Vietnam, industrialist Tony Stark has triggered a booby trap that lodges shrapnel in his heart, and basically
Yeah.
we know the rest.
Yeah.
And
He
at
was just a bit
this,
more eccentric billionaire back then, I think, like a bit sillier.
yeah, yeah. The next one being Iron Man issue 2000, the introduction of Ironmonger.
Wow.
Monger, even no R in there. Obadiah Stane was introduced in Iron Man issue 163. He took over Stark International and turned it into Stane International. So that would have fit in really
Mm.
well with your. They should have kept him had a secondary like business to rival Tony's because it would have
Yeah.
kept in line with the source
Yeah.
material.
It would have been a nice thing for them to go back to, but I guess they just wanted to clean slate.
He's actually the first major villain in the MCU. Oh no, and well, we knew that.
Yeah.
And most I thought I was going to say the comics there, and most of their well, that couldn't be right either. Most of their rivalry came straight from the comics. It was issue 200 that had the climactic Iron Man versus Ironmonger battle.
Mhm.
There you go. Next one's the last one even is the Invincible Iron Man issue 55. Iron Man reveals his secret identity.
Yes, because that took a while in the comics. I like how he calls himself the Invincible Iron Man as well. It's very
Ballsy.
presumptuous. He
Ballsy of
gets
him.
gets his butt kicked quite a lot in the movies.
Yeah, well, Iron Man's been posing as Tony Stark's bodyguard for years, which is what Jake said earlier. And while there were times that his identity was nearly exposed, he always managed to keep the heat off his back, which is what you see him do
Yeah.
quite a bit with Roddy until he can't do it no more.
Until he's about to get shot down.
Yeah. Just some comics just to list off that these are not inspired by the movies, but these are just Iron Man comics, and these are
Mhm.
some of the top ones that I found.
Oh yeah.
For if you are interested in reading. First being Iron Man Noir, which is 2010, Scott Snyder and Manuel Garcia. Scott Snyder being of Batman World. He
Nice,
did some
yeah.
of the most greatest Batman comics, in my opinion.
He knows his stuff for sure.
He really does. Iron Man the End 2008 by David Michelin, Bob Layton, Bernard Chang, and Mike Cavallero. This is not one that I have seen a lot of. I have
Mhm.
seen Iron Man Noir. It looks very interesting.
Yeah.
Just imagine, the whole Nicolas Cage thing.
Yeah, like a
Yeah,
more practical steampunky Iron Man suit.
with Nazis. I'm just
Yeah.
yeah,
Kill
yeah.
them all, I say.
Yeah. And the last one, is this my last one? Yeah, it's my last one. I Am Iron Man. And this is from 2023.
Oh, that's
And this
cool. So
is
that recent, there's good stuff. That's good.
and I am not going to dishonor the writer and artist by butchering their names. So if you are interested, it's one of the most recent releases, and it's a five-part limited series that exists to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the character.
Oh, that's really nice. I hadn't realized it was 60th anniversary.
60 years.
Oh man, but yeah, that's good though. I like the comic recommendations because it'll give me things to keep an eye out for in the shops. Because
I mean,
like we said at the start, it's really intimidating to try and get into comics. So
incredibly. If I can give
yeah,
anyone any advice, and this is the advice that I was given, Wikipedia is your best friend. Not joking.
I've read lots of character backstories on Wikipedia in
It's
my
not just
time.
it, but it's not just that. Wikipedia actually has a list of every issue that the your
Yes.
favorite superhero has been in. So if you take a fancy, say, I'm interested in Iron Man. I don't know nothing about him. Go to Wikipedia, read the backstory. If you are interested, there is
Mhm.
a list there for you to pick from.
Yeah.
That can't be that is the most helpful thing to do, as opposed to going, well, I need to do this or I need to read that. And it just gets really convoluted, really
Mhm.
confusing very quickly.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
do what me and Jake did. Go for your big hitters.
Yeah, and work your way back.
hmm Find out who you like. Find out who you don't like. You might not even like the Avengers as reading material.
And
I'm not a huge fan of Tony as a reading.
no, he kind of just shows up to tell people off from what I've seen in sort of the
He's
mid range.
see when I what I've read is more Illuminati kind of stuff, and it just like, oh, get off.
Civil War as well.
Oh my gosh! So I
Yeah,
actually have read Civil War in its
yeah.
entirety with every crossover.
I did
That is
that too.
it's like
Because
114
yeah,
issues of a crossover.
but you can do it on the Marvel app thing, can't you? Um, even
Yeah,
though the Marvel app thing's not that great. But yes,
yeah.
I
That
did
is
that.
not what I did, but very similar.
No, but you learn a lot about weird
Mhm,
characters like Speedball and,
yeah.
and stuff.
hmm
and Wolverine gets his entire skin blasted off in a nuclear
Yeah,
explosion.
yeah. But it fits in lovely when you are reading the main story as well, because
Yeah,
there is so much going on in Civil War that it doesn't just surround Tony and Cap. So
no,
do it. I would. I did. It was fun. It was a
yeah.
whole weekend I'll never forget.
Especially not with that damn sad ending.
It was more Punisher that got me. Like
Yeah,
the Punisher
that
bit really upset me.
it's really deep, that part. It's like a
hmm
good like a proper examination of the character
Yeah.
to it.
But we're
Yeah.
jumping because that is something for
Oh yeah.
way down the line and
That's
very different to comic book
phase
Civil War
three.
anyway. Yeah. We're just in phase one. Movie one.
Yeah. Wow, it's exciting though, because
It is. It's
who we hitting next?
next is I'm not gonna sing it. No, I am gonna sing it. It's the Hulk.
Oh
Incredible
yeah,
Hulk.
the
It's
ever
not.
loving Hulk or whatever. And this is Edward Norton, the Hulk
This
as
is
well.
Edward Norton Hulk, and I I am not sad that we had a changeover in actor.
No, but
But
I think
I
I quite
liked
like. I was gonna say I like both. Like,
him. Hmm.
I'm famously fine with recasts because it used to happen all the time in the 90s, and I didn't. We didn't get mad at
Yeah,
that back then.
I always remember Marvel like we don't recast,
Yeah,
but you have because you've
yeah,
technically you recast Jarvis as Vision.
yeah,
There
yeah.
is a actress in Luke Cage, and no, it's not canon anymore, but it was at the
Hmm.
time, who is the actress who goes up on the person who goes up to Tony Stark and sparks Civil War. So
Yes.
Marvel, you do recast.
And like, yeah, like it's fine. Like, but
Mm.
it by saying that they kind of put themselves in a corner when they're like, oh well, the character has to go away forever now. It's like,
And now
well,
you've just done the biggest recast of them all and set a
yeah,
nerd verse into a frenzy.
exactly. And you know what? Like watching some old videos around this time, like people were like convinced that actor would be Red Hulk one day. And unfortunately missed out on it.
Oh.
But it's interesting how long, how long the game's been going with Marvel.
Yeah.
Like we'll see guys in these next few movies who'll be showing up, like decades down the line, pretty
Hmm.
much. It's very
Yeah.
interesting.
We're in it for the long game, people. This is the countdown
Yeah.
to Doomsday.
Oh, it's scary when you say it like that. But
It's
yes,
exciting. It's
yeah.
so exciting. And if we pull this off,
Hmm.
we will be going to the day. We have to take the day off work and go to the
Yeah.
day opening together
Yeah.
in 20 what?
Oh yeah,
When?
so we're working our way towards Avengers Doomsday, which is penciled in for May 1st, 2026.
So you've got a full rest of this year, all of next
Yeah.
year, and part of next year with us for Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
And if
you.
and if
On
we
you,
don't
Grit.
and if for some reason we can't pull it off, we'll have to recast stand-ins.
You may see Chris and Lee taking over. Who knows?
Yeah, they're a duo. That probably works out. But Sammy, I've had a blast on
It's been so much fun.
our first official mini adventure together as
Our first one
co-hosts.
ever?
Yeah, we've done some Twitch streams and
Mm,
stuff, but
that was a
this
while
is
ago.
this is our first like like planned show and everything
Hmm.
that we've sat and worked on for weeks. And obviously, as always, special thanks to Paul who creates all
Yes.
the amazing artwork, and he's got some really fun things cooked up for this series. That we've just sort of scratched the surface on, but he always
Hmm.
surprises us with like some amazing artwork. And I love the logo because it's got that kind of
Yeah.
like that green and silvery
Oh,
thing
the
going on.
colors.
It's very moody, but like in a
Yeah.
cool sort of foreboding way.
This is the colors in it are absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
We plan to have this out every Saturday.
Well, I think we're gonna try for every 2 weeks.
Every two
Uh,
weeks. My apologies.
so
That was my way of confirming.
yeah.
Am I recording next week?
No, 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 no. Because we've tried to, get as close to the release day of Doomsday and to give us some runway in case Marvel drops a new movie
If
into the timeline.
yeah, we are relying heavily on
Yeah.
Marvel keeping the fears as it is.
We also might get a free week if Blade drops off the time schedule.
We could fill that with some TV spots, but yeah,
Yeah.
every 2 weeks on a Saturday. This is just going to be for the moment a YouTube
Yeah.
special.
Yeah.
So you're only going to see us on YouTube. There ain't going to be no audio unless you really want to bug Paul
Yeah.
for it.
But it's evergreen, so anytime you decide to watch these movies, you can just load up our podcasts and be like, oh, I'm gonna have a watch along show that kind
Exactly.
of deals with all this thing. And who knows what crazy stuff we'll learn about Marvel as we go on, because they're going to be dropping new trailers and stuff, and we're going to be like
Gonna be
sitting there
right
with our
here.
minds blown. Like
Yeah, it's gonna honestly the next year and a bit is gonna be exciting. We're gonna go
yeah.
back into old times. We're gonna be looking at new stuff because obviously
Mhm.
Marvel, we've got conventions to happen next year before we even get to Doomsday. So
Yeah.
you're in for an exciting ride with two
Yeah.
exciting people.
And
Just saying.
this is my favorite genre of podcast to listen to, is to like watch a thing and then hear some people talk about it. So proper passion project about something that I've lost the way on a little bit, but I want to re-find the marvel of. And this early stuff is like excellent, so I'm not worried about that. There's maybe some phase 4 ones I'm a
Well,
bit
maybe in
worried about.
some dodgy grounds, but we
Yeah.
will get there. We will walk through it together.
And if
It's
it's
going
going
to
to be
be
really
fine.
bad, we'll find a fun guest who can elevate.
Talk. Yeah. Yeah, who can come on and really alleviate everything that we've just endured. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and fill some time talking about how they feel about Marvel and stuff.
Exactly.
We
Well,
got techniques. We're professionals.
we've done this before. Well, have you got a sign off?
Oh, not really, apart from Excelsior, true believers.
I will go with stay nerdy, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.